the official brand name for Microsoft's data ecosystem or data processing engineering platform is Azure Synapse Analytics. There is also a new product called the Microsoft Fabric, which is built on top of Synapse Analytics and the Power BI, which is in fact is the integration of what Azure Synapse Analytics is, plus what used to be Microsoft Power BI. But this fabric is not very matured yet and is not widely used yet. So we are not going to introduce this here. Instead, in this course, we are still going to focus on utilizing Synapse Analytics because basically the operation in Microsoft Fabric, the new product, is the same as what is currently in Synapse Analytics. And we will briefly introduce this Microsoft Fabric in our last class, just to just so that you have idea how similar they are, and so you don't need to worry about it. In a typical enterprise data flow, we see this again and again. We have the source, we have staging in which during which time ETL process will load data into the data warehouse and data mart, and then someone from the analysts or reporting guy will run their query against this data warehouse and data mart. This is the current ecosystem under the Azure Synapse Analytics the flag. So to the left, we have different source. We have streaming, we have semi-structured data, we have relational data set, all these coming in with the ETL process of a pipeline. This is Synapse the pipeline, which is the ETL job, loads data into this part, the Azure Data Lake Storage. This is storage of a data warehouse and data mart. And we have different pools, SQL pools, Spark pools, Data Explorer pools. All these pools are the compute part. So with compute and storage, this is where the data warehouse and the and the data mart sits. Now you have the data source, you have ETL, you have the data mart and the data warehouse. Your data can be fetched from outside, like AI, machine learning service, and Power BI dashboard reporting, and the other services. This is the Microsoft ecosystem, data ecosystem, and you can see that at the center of the stage is the Synapse with ETL and data warehouse, data lake house, and the ETL data mart, plus Power BI. And that's exactly what we are going to introduce in the second half of our class. Today, we are going to talk about the storage, the compute. We are going to demonstrate how to build this. And then next week, we are going to talk about the pipeline, how to build the ETL jobs, fetching data from source into data lake. And the week 9, we are going to talk about Power BI, how to create dashboards based on the data sets here. And the week 10, we are going to have a brief introduction of different AI and machine learning services on Azure. So in the data cloud warehouse in Synapse, these are components, right? You have a Power BI as a reporting. You have the pipelines. Synapse the pipeline. We mentioned that we are using Synapse pipeline as the ETL tool, and which was at one point called the Azure Data Factory. That's why you have this logo. Looks factory-like logo. And data can be stored in Azure Data Lake Service Generation 2 and it can be stored in Spark tables, Cosmos DB, and the compute part is a SQL pools and Spark pool. So this gives us a whole ecosystem of cloud data warehouse, data lakehouse in Azure. And Compute includes dedicated SQL pool, which was formerly the SQL data warehouse. We mentioned that briefly. It's a full-scale data warehouse product. There's also serverless SQL pool, which is a lakehouse solution. You can run SQL against the data lake from this serverless SQL pool. And then you have a Spark pool, which you can run Spark in your ecosystem. And a little bit more on the Spark side, right? Spark, we mentioned that it's a part of the Apache Hadoop system. It's widely used for ETL and data analysis. So currently, there are two major ways of doing data processing. One is SQL, one is Spark. Spark is used for fast processing and data processing requiring specific compute power, like graph processing, machine learning, and some other complex computing situations. So the question is, now that we know the data lake is built on top of Apache Hadoop data lake, right? And we have the processing power from Apache Hadoop Spark. Why not build a data lake process layer compute on Spark on top of the data lake files of HDFS? And that's exactly what someone called Databricks do. Databricks is an American enterprise software company founded by the creators of Apache Spark. Their product is called Delta Lake. This product offers web-based platform based on Spark, file-based HDFS-based data lake storage, cloud-based compute cluster for Spark job execution, and automated cluster management. So here is a quick look at what it looks like. Again, storage and compute are separated, right? You have the control plane. This is administrative nodes. Storage is stored on AWS S3 or Azure Blob Storage, and you have the data plane, which is data processing with Apache Spark cluster. These are the compute units, and this is the storage. So the same architecture as we see before: administrative, compute, storage. And because they have this compute and storage, so similar to Snowflake, they can also have parallel processing. Whereas all these clusters can read from the same storage and running different queries, thus achieving parallel processing. The advantage of Databricks is it's cheaper than Snowflake because it's not a relational database. It's relational, but it's data lake, so it's cheaper. It's simpler than Azure Synapse and some other tools. However, it's just a lake house solution, so it does not have a complete ecosystem like AWS would have. So what they do is they have a have a strategic partnership with Azure. There's the Azure Databricks, which basically runs Databricks clusters on Azure. So we are not going to touch Databricks in our course, but it's going to be helpful to know because this is another possible data lake solution outside of Synapse, Azure Synapse Analytics.